All right, y'all, this is the Unit 3 test review, and here we go. Number 1, list different terms for slope. How can it be expressed mathematically? You're going to have 4 answers here, so you need to make sure you know all 4 of these because you will be asked questions about this on the test. And the first thing you need to remember is that another phrase for slope is constant rate of change. So constant rate of change. This is very, very important. You can put a star next to that. Another one is if you're plugging numbers in, you have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's going to come from 2 points. Okay, all that really means is you're getting the change in y and dividing over the change in x. So that's another way. And then if you're given a graph, the easiest way to get your slope is to do rise over run. So those are the 4 different ways. Number 2, give an example of each type of slope as a number and on a graph. Okay, so a positive line, if you read it from left to right, you just need to make sure it's going up. So this is, originally I just drew like a random positive line, but if I want to actually have a number as my slope, I'm just going to start somewhere. I'm going to start here at the origin. Let's say my slope is 2. I'm going to go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. Or I could go down 2 over 1 this way. And that would be a positive slope. And in this case, my slope as a number, my slope would be 2. If I wanted a negative slope, let's say I start at the origin again, not that you always have to, but just to make it easy. Let's mix up the number a little bit. Let's say our slope's negative 2 over 3. So I go down 2 over 3 this way because I need my slope, or I need my line to be going downhill. I'm just making up a number, but in this case, my slope would be negative 2 over 3. Okay, now for a vertical line, and I know other teachers probably talk about this, they may say it backwards from the way I do, but I say hoi bucks. Okay, if we're talking about vertical, then we need to look at bucks. Okay, so a vertical line, that means the slope is going to be undefined. Okay, so I'm just going to draw a random vertical line. So here's one, and there we go. There's my slope is undefined. And then for a horizontal line, okay, so any horizontal line, I'm going to think hoi. And my slope is going to be 0. So in this case, m is 0. Okay, number 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all asking to determine the slope of the line through the points. So I'm going to use y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 on all of these. I'll write that here, but I'm not going to write it on every single problem. I would if I was y'all working this out, or at least on the test, I would write it on all of them. Okay, so number 3, I'm going to have negative 3 minus 2 over 1 minus 1. Okay, well negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5. 1 minus 1 is 0. A lot of us get confused on whether that 0 is on the top or the bottom, and if my slope's going to be 0 or undefined. So what I say, go ahead and just go to your calculator. Okay, so at least go in here and type in negative 5 divided by 0. And you're going to see that it's going to give you an error. That's because you cannot divide by 0. So that error right there is going to tell you that this slope is undefined. So if you had a question on is it undefined or is it 0, that error tells you right there that it's going to be undefined. All right, number 4, I'm going to have negative 4 minus a negative 4. I'll switch that here in a minute, and then 6 minus 3. Okay, so that minus a negative, that's going to change to plus a positive. So what we have up top is 0, and then I have 6 minus 3 on the bottom. Again, just don't rely on yourself to know what this is going to be. Always just type it in the calculator just in case. So clear that. And we've got 0 divided by 3. And this will actually tell you that it's 0. So there my slope is 0. Number 5, I'm going to have negative 4 minus 5. And I'm I'm going to have negative 8 minus 4 on the bottom. So up top, negative 4 minus 5 is negative 9. Negative 8 minus 4, that's negative 12. Okay, just always type that in the calculator. So I would do negative 9 divided by negative 12. And then I'm going to do math, enter, enter. And I get 3 over 4. You may have known how to do that. I just want to make sure. Number 6. Now notice number 6 has 3 points. Just pick 2 of the points. You can pick the first 2, the last 2, the first and the third. It doesn't matter. These are all on the same line, so you can pick any 2 points. So I'm just going to use these first 2. So I have 2 minus 0, and then 0 minus 5 on the bottom. So I have 2 over negative 5. So my slope is just going to be negative 2 over 5. Okay, number 7, write an example of a nonlinear equation. This is going to be different for everybody. For a nonlinear equation, there are 3 rules. You can't have an x in the denominator, x and y cannot be multiplied, and you cannot have an exponent greater than 1. So just a couple of, I'll just give you a few examples. You could have y equals x squared. Okay, that's an exponent bigger than 1, so that's not linear. You could have y equals xy plus 3. Okay, again, not linear. Or I'm going to change that y to like a 7 or something. And, well, that's just a couple of examples. But I would just stick with something that has a big exponent. Number 8. 8 through 11 says determine if the equation is linear. Hint, can it be put in y equals mx plus b? So number 8, I can look at this and I know this is linear. But let's say I did try to get it into y equals. I would add x to both sides. And that's y equals x plus 3. Okay, that's not breaking any rules. If you needed to check that, go to your y equals in your calculator, type in x plus 3, and graph it, and you're going to see that it is a straight line. So, yes. Number 9, it's in y equals, and you can see that it's breaking a rule. X and y are being multiplied. So, no, that's not linear. Number 10, it's already in y equals, so I'm just going to see if it's breaking any rules. I don't have an exponent greater than 1. There's no x in the denominator, and x and y are not being multiplied. So yes, this is linear. So you could type that in your calculator and check it. Number 11 is a little tricky because at first glance, you see an x in the denominator, which means it's not linear. But if I were to get this in y equals, I would need to multiply both sides by 2x minus 5 to get that out of the denominator. If I do that, I end up with y equals negative 4x plus 10, which is linear. So yes, that is linear. That one's a little tricky. We won't give you anything that tricky. Number 12, given 2 ordered pairs, x7 and 1, 2, and has a slope of negative 5/3, calculate the missing value for x. So what I'm going to do is write down the slope formula. And then I'm going to plug in everything that I know. So I do actually know the slope is negative 5/3. My y2 is 2. My y1 is 7. So 2 minus 7. And then I've got 1 minus x on the bottom. Okay, now I'm going to look at this and see if there's anything I can simplify. And I can. 2 minus 7. I'm just going to mark that out and say that that's negative 5. Now what we have here is a proportion. And so I'm going to cross multiply to solve this proportion. 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. And I'm going to do this other cross. I would advise you to write this out. So that's negative 5 times 1 minus x. And then distribute. Now try to distribute in your head because you're going to miss something. Okay, so I've got negative 15 equals, that's going to be negative 5 plus 5x. And I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So negative 10 equals 5x. Divide by 5. So x is negative 2. If you wanted to check that, you can plug it in for x. Find the slope of those 2 points, and your slope slope needs to be -5/3. 13, Henry was saving money for a new car. Given the equation S equals 100M for the amount of money in savings after M months. Write a sentence to interpret the slope of the equation. Okay, so slope is always what's happening every, whatever we're talking about. In this case, every month. Okay, so this would mean Henry is saving $100 per month. That easy. You just have to know where to look for the slope. 14, a car is expected to decrease in value according to that equation, where y is the value of the car after x years. What is the meaning of this slope? So my slope's -1,500. So this is saying it's going to decrease, so it's going to go down $1,500 in value every, what are we talking about, years? Every year. So down $1,500 a year. What is the meaning of the y-intercept? Y-intercept always means the same thing. It's always where you start. So this would be the starting value of the car. This is kind of a review question here. Starting value of the car. 15. Give 2 points that are solutions to the equation y equals -2x plus 3 and 1 point that is not. There's multiple ways to do this. Here's what I would do. I would just pick an x value. So let's say I take an x value of 0 and I plug that in. I would have y equals -2 times 0 plus 3. -2 times 0 is 0 plus 3 is 3. So there we go. There's 1 point that's on the line. Okay, let's get another point that's on the line. Let's say I plug in 1 for x. So I have y equals -2 times 1 plus 3. -2 times 1 is -2 plus 3 is 1. So there's another point that is on the line. A point that is not on the line. Okay, well if my x value needs to be 0 when y is 3, that means a point not on the line would be 0, 5. Okay, because if it needs to be 0, 3, it can't be 0, 5. Okay, if you wanted to graph that in your calculator, you could pull up your table, look for points that are on the line. Lots of different ways to do that. 16, determine the slope and y-intercept to the equation. To be able to do that, I need to get this into y equals. So I'm going to subtract 4x first. That is going to get me -7y equals -4x minus 28. I'm going to divide everything by -7. This is a review problem here. So I have y equals -4 divided by -7. That's just going to be 4 over 7x. -28 divided by -20 or -7 is +4. So the slope here is 4 over 7, and the y-intercept would be 4. 17, what is the value of x if x2 is a solution to, remember f of x just means y. So we've got y equals 3x minus 1. And look what it's giving us in this point. It's giving us the y value. So I'm going to take 2 and I'm going to plug it in for y. And then I'm going to solve. I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So 3 equals 3x. Divide by 3. So x would be 1. Number 18, draw a vertical line. Then we're going to write the equation and we're going to say what the slope is. Okay, so any vertical line, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to draw one here. Well, that's not very straight. Okay, when we think of vertical and horizontal lines, we're going to think hoi vux. In this situation, we're talking about vertical. So we're going to say vux because this is going to help us out with these questions. So if it's a vertical line, that tells me the slope is going to be undefined. Okay, so here my slope is undefined. If I want the equation of this line, this x in vux, that tells me it's going to be x equals. So x equals, and that's going through an x value of -2. So that would be my equation here. You need to know it's going to be x equals 19, draw a horizontal line. Okay, so I'll just draw a horizontal line up here. Okay, this is going to make me think hoi, because a horizontal line is going to have a 0 slope. So my slope here is 0. It also means it's going to be y equals. So what does y equal there? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here we go. My slope is 0. My equation is y equals 5. Number 20, determine the x and y intercepts as ordered pairs, then graph. Okay, so remember with an x-intercept, we know y is 0. With a y-intercept, we know x is 0. It's important when we're doing these. So if I'm looking for an x-intercept, I'm going to plug 0 in for a y. So I have negative x. If I plug 0 in, that's going to be gone. So equals 3. Divide by negative 1, so x equals negative 3. Okay, your teachers probably talked about the cover-up little method here. It's hard to show that in a video, but if you're looking for x, you can cover up the y and then just solve it from there. So if my x-intercept is negative 3, that ordered pair would be negative 3, 0. I'm going to go ahead and plot that point. So that's where it's going to cross my x-axis. Now I'm going to get my y value. Okay, if I take 0 and plug it in for x, all I'm left with is y equals 3. So my ordered pair there would be 0, 3. So I'm going to plot that point. And now we have an x-intercept and a y-intercept. So there's my line. Number 21, same thing. I'm going to do the cover-up thing here. So if I cover up the y, that leaves me with 3x equals 12. Divide by 3. My x-intercept is going to be 4, 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to put that on my x-axis. Now for my y value, or for my y-intercept, now I'm going to cover up the x. So that leaves me with negative 4y equals 12. Divide by negative 4. And so my y-intercept is negative 3, which would be 0, negative 3. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. And now I can draw my line. There we go. Number 22, determine the slope and the y-intercept of this equation. We've kind of already done one like this, but we'll do it again. So I need to get this into y equals. So I'm going to subtract 2x. That gives me negative 5y equals negative 2x plus 20. Divide by negative 5. And so we get y equals, it's going to be positive 2 over 5x minus 4. So now if I need to label my slope and my y-intercept, my slope is going to be 2/5. My y-intercept is negative 4. 23. Given the table of values, what are the x and y intercepts of the linear function? Express your answers as ordered pairs. Now, if we were to see any zeros in this table, we may be able to label what our x and y intercept are, but I don't have any zeros. So I'm going to go ahead and plot all of these points. So I have negative 3, negative 1, 1, 1, 5. If I'm plotting these too fast for you, just pause it. And then 2, 7. Okay, now the problem is I don't have a point exactly on my y-axis or on my x-axis. So I'm going to figure out what my slope is so I can get some more points along this line. Okay, so I'm just going to use these top 2 points. So I'm going up 2 over 1. So my slope is 2. So I'm going to go from this point here. I'm going to go up 2 over 1, and I landed on the y-axis. So my y-intercept is 3, or I can put that as 0, 3. My x-intercept is a little more difficult here, because if I go down 2 over 1, I've passed through the x-axis, but I don't know exactly where it is. But let's see, what's a good way to say this? you can tell that it's at negative 1.5. I don't know how else to explain that except you can tell that it's negative 1.5. So about negative 1.5 comma 0. There's another way to get that exactly, but we haven't got to it yet. So as of right now, that's all you know. Like, we're not going to give you one that's super hard to figure out there. 24, write an equation for the line. This is hard to even tell where the line is. It's this line right here, this vertical line, which means I'm going to think about Vux here. Okay, if Vux would tell me that it's a vertical line with an undefined slope, and the equation needs to be x equals. Okay, so I'm going to look here and see what x equals, and it's going through 4. So my equation here would be x equals 4. 25, graph the equation. A couple of different ways we could do this. Because we know how to find x and y intercepts, we could do that. Or we can get this into y equals mx plus b. So that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to subtract 3x and move it over. Okay, and then I also need to move my 5 over. So I have negative y equals negative 3x plus 5. Okay, I don't want a negative y, I want a positive y. So I'm going to divide everything by a negative 1. And that gets me 3x minus 5. This is a review problem here. If we have you graph on this test, it's probably going to be using the x and y intercepts. So you really need to make sure you know that more. But here, my y-intercept is negative 5. So I'm going to start at negative 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And my slope is 3. So I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3 over 1. 1, 2, 3 over 1. So there's my line. Number 26. What is an x-intercept and what are other terms for it? Okay, so an x-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. So the line crosses the x-axis. The second part of this question is very, very important. What are other terms for an x-intercept? You need to know all of these very well. So other terms for x-intercept would be zeros, and it would be solutions, and it would be roots. So I could ask you any of those words, and you have to know that it's asking for an x-intercept. Number 27, what are the x and y intercepts of the line? Write your answers as ordered pairs. Okay, so I'm going to start with the x-intercept, which is right here. And that's at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Negative 5, I believe. So my x-intercept is at negative 5, 0. And my y-intercept is right up here. That's at 1, 2, 3, 4, positive 5. So that's at 0, 5. Number 28. Here we go. Here's what we just talked about in number 26. Determine the 0. That means you have to know that that means to find the x-intercept. Okay, which we've already done on this review. We know that for an x-intercept, that the y value is 0, which means I can plug 0 in for this y, or I can just cover it up. But if I plug 0 in, I'm left with 5x equals 10, and divide by 5, x is 2. I know this says determine it by graphing. That would just mean you need to get that into y equals, and then you need to graph it. But I'm not going to go through that trouble, but your x-intercept, it will be going through 2. Right there. 29. Hooke's law for an elastic spring states that the distance d a spring stretches varies directly as the force F applied. Write a direct variation equation using d, f, and k. So normally our direct variation equation is y equals kx. Okay, but here they want us to use d, f, and k. So the way I think about this is whatever order the sentence is in, that's going to be the order my equation is in. So if it says that the distance it stretches varies directly, that means it's going to be d equals, because that's what it says first in this sentence. So it's going to be d equals kf. in this case. You're always going to have a K in there. That's your constant of variation. B says, if a force of 160 newtons stretches a spring 5 centimeters, how much will a force of 368 newtons stretch the same spring? Now you could use a proportion to solve part B, but if we ask you something about part A, you can't get that with a proportion. Okay, but I'm going to solve this the way I would solve it. So it says a force of 160 newtons stretches a spring 5 centimeters. So my distance is 5. I'm just taking this and plugging it into my formula now. I don't know K, but my force is 160. To find K, I need to divide by 160. So I'm just going to go to my calculator. I'm going to do 5 divided by 160. That's not a terrible decimal, but I'm going to go ahead and get this to a fraction, which is 1 over 32. So if this asked for a direct variation equation, my equation is going to be D equals 1 over 32F. And we will ask you that, so make sure you know how to do that. But now I can answer the second part. How much will a force of 368 newtons stretch the same spring? So D is what I'm trying to find. So I'm going to do 1 over 32 times 368. I already have 132 in my calculator, so I can just do times 368. And I get 23 over 2. It kept it in a fraction form for me since I already had that fraction in there. But if I wanted to get that back to a decimal, I can do math 2. And it's 11.5, because 11.5 may make a little bit more sense for this question. Number 30, find the 0. So again, there's 0. That means the x-intercept. Okay, so I either need to plug 0 in for y or cover it up. The problem with covering f of x up here, which means y, is everything's on the right side. So I can't find x just by kind of doing it in my head. I have to actually plug that 0 in, and I'm going to have to solve this. So I'm going to add 6 to both sides. So I have 6 equals 3x, divide by 3, and so x is 2. If I needed to put that as an ordered pair because it is my x-intercept, it would be 2, 0. 31. Find the slope from the table below. So remember, slope is change in y over change in x. You can use the slope formula here if you want, but I'm going to go ahead and just do the change of both. So my y values are going down 3. My x values are going up 1. So my change in y was negative 3. My change in x was 1. So my slope here is negative 3. Number 32. Given that y varies directly with x, write a direct variation equation if y equals 9.5 when x equals 0.5. So direct variation is y equals kx. You need to write that down every time you have a direct variation problem. They're telling me that y is 9.5. I don't know k, that's what I need to find, and x is 0.5. So if I divide by 0.5 on both sides, 9.5 divided by 0.5 is 19. If it just asked for my constant of variation, that would be it, 19. But it asked for the direct variation equation. So I'm just going to take 19 and I'm going to plug that in for k. And that's my equation. 33. Given that y varies directly with x, determine the constant of variation if y equals 40 when x is 12. All right, so y equals kx again. So it's telling me y is 40, I don't know k, and x is 12. So if I divide both sides by 12, k ends up being 10 over 3. And that's all it asked for was the constant of variation. That's what I found. Given that y varies directly with x, y is 15 when x is 5, determine y when x is 30. Okay, we've seen a lot of these in a row. There are quite a few of these on the test. So I've got y equals kx. I'm going to plug in everything I know. So y is 15. I don't know k, but x is 5. Divide both sides by 5. So k here, my constant of variation is 3. Okay, so my equation would be y equals 3x, since that's what my k was. Now I'm going to plug in what they're asking me. So it says determine y when x is 30. So 3 times 30, y would be 90. All right, this 35 through 38 are asking, are the sequences arithmetic? If they are, write the next 3 terms and the nth term. All right, so 35, I'm going to see what the difference between all these are. So that goes down 3, down 2. Okay, I can already tell this is not arithmetic. So those need to be the same. So 35 is no. 36, this is going down 20, down 20, down 20. So yes, this is arithmetic, but now I need to write an equation for the nth term. We're going to use the formula that we gave y'all in the notes. So it's a of n equals a of 1, which is the first term, that's negative 3, plus n minus 1, that's what the formula says, times d, and our d here is negative 20. Okay, you may just be asked to write it out like that, but we need to go ahead and distribute that negative 20 and get this simplified. So I'm going to distribute the negative 20. So I still have the negative 3 out front. Negative 20 times n is negative 20n, and negative 20 times negative 1 is positive 20. If I combine my like terms of negative 3 and 20 here, I'm going to have a of n equals negative 20m plus 17. So that's my answer here. 37. First I'm going to check to see if this is arithmetic. And this one is because they're all going down by 30. So we're going down 30, down 30, down 30. So now I'm going to write my equation. So a of n equals, my first term is negative 34 plus n minus 1. And then my difference here is negative 30. I'm going to go ahead and distribute that backwards. So that's going to get me negative 30n plus 30. I'm going to combine my like terms here. So that's going to be negative 30n minus 4. That's my answer there. Number 38, and this one's pretty easy to tell. These are all going down by 10. So now I'm going to plug this into my formula. So I've got a of n equals, my first term is negative 30 plus n minus 1. And then the difference between these is negative 10. I'm going to backwards distribute that. So that's going to get me a negative 10n and a positive 10. I'm going to combine my like terms. So I have negative 10n minus 20. That's my answer there. All right, 2 more. Cellular phone companies often package their products to make them more attractive to potential users. You average 356 minutes per month in talk time. Which package is the better deal? Package A includes a free phone in 300 minutes. It'll cost 12 minutes per minute for each minute over the plan time. Package A has a base rate of $39.95. Package B has a phone that costs $10 and has 350 minutes of time and is 8 cents per minute for each minute over the plan time. Package B has a base rate of $35.95, not including the phone. Okay, and we're seeing how much it would cost to talk for 356 minutes. So I'm going to look at package A first. All right, so package A, it says it includes 300 free minutes. Okay, and then it's 12 cents per minute over. So 12 cents, if we talk for 356 minutes, that means I'm gonna have to pay for 56 minutes. And then you also have a base rate of $39.95. If I plug that all into the calculator, I'm not gonna waste your time doing that. It's $46.67. All right, plan B. And it says that package B has a phone that costs $10, so I need to buy the phone for $10. And it has 350 minutes of time, which means I'd only have to pay for 6 minutes. So it's 0.08 times 6. And then it also has a base rate of $35.95. Okay, if I type all that in the calculator, I would be paying $46.43. Which means plan B, by not much, but a little bit, would be the cheaper way. All right, last question. Says, the gas tank in a car holds a total of 16 gallons of gas. The car travels 75 miles on 4 gallons of gas. If the gas tank is full at the beginning of a trip, which graph represents the rate of change in the amount of gas in the tank? All right, so rate of change, remember that means slope. All right, so we're starting with 16 gallons in our tank, which means our graph cannot be this third one, and it cannot be this fourth one, because they need to be starting at 16 and they're not. So we just need to decide between 1 and 2. So we need to figure out how far can this go. Well, it travels 75 miles on 4 gallons. So we need to figure out how many miles would it go with 16 gallons. So I just set up a really easy proportion here, and I'm going to cross multiply. So I have 4x equals 16 times 75 is 1,200. Divide by 4, and x is 300. So when I have 0 gallons of gas, I was able to go 300 miles, which means my answer is 2. Okay, so that's it. So make sure you don't just solely rely on this video. If you watched this video, I would go back and work the review again, just to make sure you know what you're doing.